May the 11th, 1348. The city of Pistoia in Italy bravely prepares to confront the Black Death, the highly lethal pandemic ranking among the most devastating in history. Amidst the devastation of the spread of the plague throughout Europe, causing widespread death and societal disintegration, the officials of Pistoia swiftly enacted a set of health regulations in a desperate effort to safeguard their population. This meticulous documentation of these regulations sheds light on how medieval society confronted the atrocities of the pandemic by imposing restrictions on trade, travel, and enforcing quarantine measures. Additionally, they even mandated specific funeral rituals. But despite being centuries away from contemporary medicine, the laws offer an intriguing glimpse into how cities such as Pistoia grappled with the challenge of containing the disease, albeit with the limited knowledge and resources available to them at the time. So, in this video, I'm going to read the entire document and provide a little bit more context about it. But first, let me welcome you to the channel. If you've not been here before, well, it's a pleasure to meet you. For those coming back, it's good to see you again. What do you think about the plague? Why don't you tell me in the comments? And if you provide something very interesting, I may perhaps pin you at the top so everybody can enjoy your observation. Now, without any further ado, let's get straight into it, because I've been looking forward to doing this one for a while. First of all, what exactly is Pistoia? Or rather, where exactly? Well, during the early 14th century, it was a moderately significant city. Not too big, not too small, but depending on the time, it had an urban population ranging from 10 to 15,000, surrounded by a rural population of around 25,000, depending on which estimates. Now, it was situated in the region of Tuscany. That's less than 30 kilometers northwest of Florence, which was of course a much larger city, having a population of around 100 to 140,000. Well, during this period, the town was prosperous and had a very strong industrial base. The economy of Pistoia was intimately linked to the industries of Florence, being that it was so close, but it also had an extensive trade with Lucca and exported a significant number of its products through the nearby port of Pisa. The governance of the state was administered by a select executive council, consisting of the elders, who were known as the Anziani, and the Gonfalonier, the standard bearer of justice. Now, the primary executive officials were the captain of the people and the podesta, both of whom held the office for 6-month periods. Both of these officers were not actually from Pistoia, but they were sent from the larger city of Tuscany, having a little bit more experience in a larger context, hopefully translating into managing a smaller place. But of course, it's not just all about the higher-ups. Let's talk about the people. In fact, the inhabitants had granted these rulers restricted social interaction, and their conduct was heavily scrutinized, or even syndicated, even upon the completion of their terms of duty. This provision granted the right to any individual who believed that they had been treated unfairly by either officer to file charges against them, and often they did, Well, the 8 elders and the standard bearer of justice were chosen by a random selection process from among the city's eligible people who met specific criteria related to age, occupation, and property ownership. They served 2-month periods in their respective positions. The small council engaged in discussions on many matters and provided suggestions to a larger city council known as the Council of the People. Now, this Council of the People had the responsibility to either accept or reject proposals without making any changes to them. It's evident from the ordinances that there were hardly any matters that the government could not discuss that had impact on municipal life. Now, the set of ordinances discussed in today's video pertains to the city's response to the plague, which struck interior Tuscany around March or April of the year 1348. The ordinances were implemented somewhat roughly a month after an outbreak occurred. Now, in terms of Pistoia, well, Pistoia possesses a more comprehensive and well-preserved collection of city statutes compared to the majority of Italian cities. So this is not to say that other Italian cities did not make precautions or write down specific plans of action. It's just that we are blessed with a very well-preserved and unique account from the Pistoia records. Consequently, we can observe that numerous regulations in Pistoia reiterate the hygienic and general health measures that the city had consistently implemented since earlier times, in fact from the late 12th century. Do remember that the Black Plague, in terms of bubonic plague, those observable symptoms of this illness, was kind of a new thing in its scale, but plagues in general as a blanket term were, well, they were not a new thing. Illnesses and these kinds of epidemics were always going on in those days. I dare say will continue to do so for quite some time. Now, the records that we have from Pistoia and from this period in general are actually quite reliable, and it allows us to estimate that Pistoia's urban population had actually decreased by over 50% by 1404 compared to its peak in the late 13th century. Similarly, the rural population had plummeted by more than 70%, just to give you some idea of the devastating consequences. Now, this data should not solely be interpreted as indicating a higher rural mortality rate compared to the metropolitan areas in relation to the plague, but it is probable that after the plague there was a significant increase in migration from rural areas to urban areas, which had already been happening consistently anyway during the medieval period. Now, this pattern of migration likely contributed to the relative decline of the countryside. While it's pretty much impossible to determine whether mortality rates were different in the countryside compared to the city. We just don't have the records for the countryside. And it is important to note that most rural residents lived in villages rather than isolated homes. So overcrowding and sanitary issues were likely similar, not as bad, but similar indeed to what you would see in the urban areas, just in a smaller confined space. Now, with that being said, and all of the lovely context added in, let's begin with the actual document. We're going to read it front to back in all of its detail. The document is dated May the 2nd, 1348. In the name of Christ, Amen. Herein are written certain ordinances and regulations made and composed by certain wise people, elected and appointed by the elders and the standard-bearers of justice, in order to conserve the health of the human body and restrain and resist various and diverse pestilences which can otherwise befall the human body. And written by me, Simon Buonarcosi, notary, and now notary and scribe of the same wise men deputized through the same Lord's elder, and standard-bearer to this writing in the year from the nativity of the Lord 1348 first indiction. These wise men ordered and ordained, first, so that none of the contaminated matter which presently encroaches on the areas surrounding the city of Pistoia can enter the bodies of the citizens of Pistoia. No person, whether citizen or inhabitant of Pistoia or its territory, whether dwelling in said city or environs or territory, wherever they may be, of whatever status, condition, or authority, shall presume to dare to go to Pisa or Lucca by any means, or to their environs or territory or nearby. And no one should or can come from either of them or their environs to said city of Pistoia or its environs or territory, on penalty of 500 pence, accounted in gold, and that the gatekeepers of the city of Pistoia, guarding the gates of the said city, shall not permit those coming or returning to the said city of Pistoia from the said city of Pisa or Lucca, their environs or territory, to enter the said gates, on penalty of 10 pence from each of the guards responsible for the gate through which such an entry has been made. It is permitted, however, for citizens now living in Pistoia to go to Pisa and Lucca, their environs or territories, if they first obtain permission from the Common Council, who will vote on the merits of the case presented to them. The license is to be drawn up by the notary of the elders and standard-bearer of the city, and this ordinance is to be upheld and observed from the day of its adoption until the 1st of October, or longer, if the Council sees fit. Note: cancelled on the 23rd of May. Second item. The said wise men ordered that no person, whether citizen, inhabitant, or foreigner, shall dare in any way to bring any used cloth, whether linen or woolen, to the city of Pistoia, its environs or territory, for use as men's or women's clothing or for bedcloths, on penalty of 200 pence. And the cloth is to be burnt in the public piazza of Pistoia by the officials who discovered it. Citizens of Pistoia will be allowed to take linen or woolen cloths with them for their own use or wear, provided that they are in a pack or bundle weighing 30 pounds or less. And this rule shall be observed from the day of its adoption until next January 1st. And if any quantity of cloth of said type or quality has been carried into said city, territory, or environs, the carrier must remove and export it from the said city within 3 days of the adoption of the present ordinance. Same penalty for each carrier or carriers and for each violation. Item 3. They ordered that the bodies of the dead, after they have died, neither should or shall be removed from the place in which they are found, unless first such a body has been enclosed in a wooden casket covered by a lid secured with nails, so that no stench can issue forth, nor can it be covered by more than one canopy, blankets, or drape, under a penalty of 50 pence, paid by the heirs of the deceased, or, if there are no heirs, by the nearest kinsman in the male line. The goods of the deceased are to stand as surety for the payment of the penalty. Also, such dead bodies of the dead must be carried to the grave only in said casket, same penalty. And so that the aforesaid shall be noted by the rectors and officials of the city of Pistoia, present and future rectors of the parishes of the city of Pistoia, in whose parish there is any dead person, must themselves announce the death and the neighborhood in which the dead person lived to the podesta and the captain or others of the government of said city. They must notify them of this, or pay said penalty for each violation, and the podesta and captain to whom such announcement or notification has been made must immediately send one of their officials to the same location, to see if the contents of the present article and other statutes concerning funerals are being observed, and punish anyone found guilty with the same penalty. The aforesaid shall neither be extended nor enforced upon poor persons, those who are declared to be poor according to the statutes of the city. Item 4. In order to avoid the foul stench that the bodies of the dead give off, they have ordered that any ditch in which a body is to be buried must be dug underground to a depth of 2½ arm lengths by the measure of the city Pistoia, i.e., about 6 feet deep. Item number 5. They have ordered that no person, of whatever condition of status or authority, shall dare to return or carry to the city of Pistoia any dead body, in or out of a casket, or in any manner, on penalty of 25 pence, paid by whoever carries, brings, or orders a body to be carried or brought for each occasion, and that the gatekeepers of the city shall not permit such a body to be brought into the city on penalty of the same fine for each gatekeeper at the gate through which the body was brought. Item 6. They have ordered that any person who will have come for the burial or to bury any dead person neither should nor shall be in the presence of the body itself, nor with the relatives of such a dead person, except for the procession to the church where it will be buried. Nor shall such persons return to the house where the defunct person lived, nor enter into that house or any other house on said occasion, on penalty of 10 pence. Item number 7. They have ordered that when anyone has died, no person should dare to present or send any gift before or after burial to the same former dwelling place of such a dead person, or any other place on the said occasion, or to attend or go to a meal in that house or place on said occasion, on penalty of 25 pence. Children, carnal brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews of such a dead person, and their children, however, shall be exempted from this provision. Item 8. They have ordered that, in order to avoid useless expenses, No person should dare to dress in new clothing during the period of mourning for any dead person, or during the 8 days after that, on penalty of 25 pence for whoever contravenes this, and for each time. Wives of such dead persons, however, shall be exempted. They can be dressed in whatever new clothing they wish, without any penalty. Item 9. They have ordered that no paid mourner shall dare to mourn publicly or privately, or to invite other citizens of Pistoia to go to the funeral or to the dead person, nor may anyone engage said mourner, horn player, crier, or drummer. Item 10. So that the sounds of bells might not depress the infirm nor fear arise in them, the wise men have ordered that the ringers or custodians in charge of the bell tower of the Cathedral of Pistoia shall not permit any bell in the said bell tower to be rung for the funeral of the dead, nor shall any person dare to ring any of these bells on the said occasion. At the chapel or parish of said dead person, or at the friary, if the person is to be buried at a church of the friars, they can ring the bell of the chapel, parish church, or church of the friars, so long as it is rung only one time, and moderately, on the foresaid penalty, in the foresaid manner, for each violation. Item 11. They have ordered that no one shall dare to gather or cause to gather any persons for the purpose of bringing any widow from the former habitation of a dead person, unless at the time she is being returned from the church or cemetery where such a dead person was buried. Blood relatives of such a widow, however, wishing to bring the widow from the house at times other than at the time of burial, may send up to 4 women to accompany the said woman, who is to be brought from the foresaid house of the dead person. Item 12. They have ordered that no person should dare to raise or cause to be raised any wailing or clamor over any person, or because any person who has died outside the city, environs, or territory of Pistoia, nor on the said occasion should any persons be brought together in any place, except blood relatives and associates of such a dead person. Nor on the said occasion should any bell be rung or cause to be rung, nor announcements be made throughout the city of Pistoia by mourners, nor on the said occasion should any invitation to join the mourners should be made, on a penalty of 25 pence. It must be understood, however, in any written ordinances speaking of the dead and of honouring the burial of the dead, that the aforesaid shall not have force in the burial of the body of any soldiers of the militia, doctors of laws, judges, or physicians, whose bodies, because of their dignity, may be honoured illicitly at burial in a manner pleasing to their heirs. Item 13. So that the bodies of the living will not fall from the putrid or rotten food, no butcher or meatmonger, even in the smallest of amounts, should dare in any way to inflate meat or keep meat inflated, or to sell or arrange to have it kept and sold inflated in his shop over the counter. A penalty of 10 pence to be paid by each butcher and meatmonger for each offence, and the masters of the butchers' guild are bound, for the time being, to investigate and inquire concerning these things on every day that meat is slaughtered. They are to immediately denounce those found culpable to the Lord Podesta or Captain, or to any of their officials. Same penalty to be paid by the same masters, or by any of them, if they or any one of the masters does not arrange for all of the aforesaid things to be carried out. And the Podesta and Captain are each bound for the time being to send one of their officials to inspect and investigate and inquire concerning each and every one of the things contained in this article. And they are to fine and punish with the same penalty those found guilty, and those masters, or any one of them, who does not at once denounce whoever committed these same offences, and the word or report of any official who finds any transgression against this statute is to stand and be believed without any other proof being necessary. Item 14. They have ordered that butchers and retail vendors of meat, individually and in common, neither should nor shall hold or maintain near a tavern or any other place where they sell meats, or near a shop, or besides or behind a shop any stable, pen, or any other thing which will give off a putrid smell. Nor can they slaughter meat animals, nor hang them after slaughter in any stable or other place in which there is any stench, on a penalty of 10 pence. Now the following are short ones. It is items 15 to 21. No butcher or meatmonger may display meat at his counter for more than a single ox, calf, or cow at any one time. Between May and August each year, butchers and meatmongers must slaughter and sell meat on each licit day for its consumption of those who wish to eat it. No butcher or meatmonger may slaughter animals without a designated official's approval, who shall confirm its healthy and witness its immediate slaughtering. Between the 1st of March and 1st of December each year, no butcher or meatmonger may slaughter any breeding, mature, or juvenile sow. Between the 1st of December and 1st of March each year, butchers and meatmongers must flay any breeding, mature, or juvenile sow before selling its meat. The official in charge of the correct sale and price of the meat is to be elected by and from among the city's workers and the chapel of San Jacopo in the cathedral of the low-ranking officials of the city's treasury. For the better preservation of health, no one may export poultry, calves, and other fatty food products from the city, so that stench and putrefaction shall not be harmed to men. Henceforth, tanning of hides neither should be done within the city walls of Pistoia, on a penalty of 25 pence. Item 24. For the observance of each and every provision contained in the present articles, and everything in the articles speaking of funerals of the dead, of butchers and retail vendors of meats, they order that the Lord Podesta and Captain and their officials, charged for the time being with said duties, shall and must proceed against, investigate, and inquire concerning all acts contrary to the aforesaid. and cause whatever has been here enacted to be reviewed as often as possible, and punish the guilty by stated fines. Also, any person may accuse or denounce before either the said podester or captain any persons acting against the aforesaid or any of the content of the said statutes. And such denunciation or accuser shall, may, and will have 1/4 of the fine after it is levied and paid, which fourth part the treasurer pro tem of the treasury of the said city shall have to pay the said to the accuser and informer as soon as the fine and the penalty has been paid. And sufficient proof shall be offered by one witness worthy of belief, or 4 persons of good reputation who have learned of the violation. So that's the main part of the document. But it was revised on the 23rd of May, 1348. So, at the end of the document, we have these little notes on the revisions. Revisions of the 23rd of May. Item 15. It is provided and ordained that, in a restating and correction of the Article 22 of these ordinances, which begins, item, in order that its stench and putridity, etc., and ends for each offence, should be added to, and the added words should be understood as thus, namely, that skinners and tanners of skins should be able, and it is allowed to them, to tan the skins that they have now in their tanneries in the usual manner, which is to take effect from the day of enactment of the present ordinance, i.e. May the 23rd, 1348, until the 15th day of the month of June next to come. Moreover, that henceforth the tanning done, and ought to and can be done within the city walls of Pistoia, but only in the following places, namely in the houses lining the street and contrada district from the courtyard, or house of the canons of Pistoia situated in the chapel of Santa Maria del Nuova in the city of Pistoia. Then down the street along which one goes towards the gates of San Pietro and of the said city, up to the vicinity of the said gate, and including the land round about the said gate. And they may stretch out their skins, and do other things necessary for the said tanning process, as it pleases them, in the aforesaid places. And tanning should be done, and ought to and can be done in the place below the Castel Trajecti, up to and in the vicinity of the Carmelite Friary of Santa Maria del Monte, and in the houses and courtyards and land situated in the said places. And anyone who goes against the aforesaid stipulations, or against any one of them, is to be fined and punished for each offence, according to the penalty contained in this said article of the said ordinances. It is providing and ordained in order that no putridity and stench can harm human bodies, that the rendering down of dripping or suet be done, or ought to be done, in a house or houses at least 25 arm lengths, i.e. 50 to 60 feet, from other houses in the city of Pistoia, and not elsewhere. Penalty of 25 pence from each offender, and for each offence. It is provided and ordained that the tanning of gut, from which strings are made, is to be done and ought to be done outside the city of Pistoia, and not within the city itself, and the offender is to be fined and punished 25 pence for each offence. End of the document. Interesting, that last little part talking about the gut strings. Now, I'm a guitar player myself. You might have seen that the nails on my right hand are longer than the left. Well, that's for classical guitar. Of course, it's very hard to get gut strings these days, but you can still get them. Sort of have to buy them off the internet, though. Not many guitar shops have them as the standard stock. I believe you can get the frets as well. Same for violin strings and all the rest. Well, that is the end of the document. I'm sure there's plenty of people around who are thinking, well, thankfully that's all over, no more plague for us. Well, I have some bad news for you. I'm afraid you're mistaken. The plague isn't just a thing of the past. It's very much still with us today. Now, that being said, we don't have to look over our shoulders too much. We're quite lucky to be blessed with the modern medicine and hygienic luxury, at least in most parts of the world. But the plague goes where it goes, and it finds a way in. Now, Madagascar, for instance, that's that little island off the coast of Africa, they had their own bout of plague in 2017, in which out of 2,417 cases, there were actually 209 people who actually died from it. You imagine dying from the bubonic plague in 2017. What a way to go. But of course, that's all the way in Madagascar. Far, far away from you, right? No need to worry. Well, once again, not so fast. I did do a little bit of digging around, and it didn't take me too long to find that actually on the 13th of February, just this year, 2024, some 6 or 7 months ago, there was a news article that was published by The Guardian. I know, right? The Guardian. About a man in the state of Oregon, USA, who came down with the plague. And back in 2012, an unfortunate man also caught the plague in Oregon when he was pulling a dead rat out of his choking cat's mouth. What on earth is going on in Oregon? Well, there was another teenager from Colorado who also came down with it. In fact, last year in Colorado, that state of the USA, officials recorded 2 official deaths from the Black Plague. You didn't hear about that one on the news, didn't you? Of course, they probably don't want to panic people. No, out of curiosity, too, if you go onto the CDC website, they actually have a page there that is dedicated on ways to protect yourself from the bubonic plague. It all sounds a little ridiculous, but like I said, it's still with us, but just in this diminished capacity. So, I am going to do you the favor and tell you exactly what the CDC wants you to hear, the Center for Disease Control, about how you can avoid getting the plague, because I do not want to lose any subscribers, especially to something like that. So, the first tip: reduce rodent habitat around your home, workplace, and recreational areas. Remove brush, rock piles, junk, cluttered firewood, and possible food supplies for rodents, such as pet and wild animal food. Make your home and outbuildings rodent-proof. Well, that's a pretty good tip. Next one. Wear gloves if you are handling or skinning potentially infected animals to prevent contact between your skin and the plague bacteria. Contact your local health department if you have questions about the disposal of dead animals. Next tip. Use repellent if you think you could be exposed to fleas during activities such as camping, hiking, or working outdoors. Products containing DEET can be applied to the skin as well as clothing, and products containing the permethrin can be applied to clothing too. Also follow the instructions on the label always. Keep fleas off of your pets by applying flea control products. Animals that roam freely are more likely to come into contact with plague-infected animals or fleas and could bring them into homes. If your pet becomes sick, seek care from a veterinarian as soon as possible. Do not allow dogs or cats that roam free in endemic areas to sleep on or in your bed. Note: a plague vaccine is no longer available in the United States. New plague vaccines are in development, but are not expected to be commercially available in the near future. And that's the end of the advice from the disease control website. Oh, seems pretty simple, right? Well, those who are dog owners and cat owners, perhaps make sure you're keeping all those flea medications up. Well, if you are so unlucky to get it, what do you do? Well, these days, we just use antibiotics. It's pretty easy. If you are in a country that has extra antibiotics to go around, hopefully you are. Well, with that being said, a little bit of a scary way to finish the video. I don't want anybody getting plague, so I had to let you all know how to avoid that. Now, before I go, let me thank the patrons and supporters: Dark, Gary, Kimberly, Ember, Ben, Britt, Charles, Erin, James, Jeffrey, Melissa, Scott, Stark Factory, Wendy, Jaden, Sherry, Jessica, Christine, Sally, Katiana, and Christine. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. You know I appreciate it. And I hope you're enjoying your exclusive content. It's not much, but it's honest work. Good night, everyone. Lots of love to you all. Have a good rest. And for God's sake, wash your hands.